4. Good night, Barbadians. I want to thank you for once again coming together and to allowing us to move forward in this very difficult time of our country. Towards the end of this address, I will have the honor and distinct pleasure of launching and sharing with you a masterpiece of Bajan culture, ingenuity, and, quite frankly, downright genius. It will serve both as a reminder of the road traveled thus far in this COVID-19 journey, as well as the bold faith, confidence, and courage that will be required as we go forth in Jesus' name, as we continue to build this country stronger and more beautiful than ever. This evening, there is no need for a lot of long talk. The simple fact is, and I made you a deal 2 weeks ago, and for the most part, most people have held up their end of the bargain. I told you that if we ease the restrictions and slid back into our normal way of doing things without incident, that we would act decisively. Indeed, I warned then also that had people abused the freedoms and jeopardized the safety of ourselves, family, their friends, or indeed the general public, that we would not hesitate to roll back the measures. We made clear that the country would do whatever was necessary to remain safe. I am pleased this evening to observe and announce that we are generally happy with how we as a nation have conducted ourselves during the last 2 weeks. As you may recall, we have had a difficult period of time, and at the personal level, I had been out for over 6 weeks, and it is therefore only in the last few weeks that I can tell you that I made it my business to drive around this country both day and night in order to see what was really happening. Generally, I can say that the response and the responsible nature shown by Barbadians in observing the guidelines and restrictions that were enforced is something with which I'm happy. I'm happy to affirm that our workforce has eased back into work mode without incident, and that public transport, for the most part, has been generally safe, with commuters adhering, for the most part again, to the rules and regulations. We also removed the alphabetical system of shopping, and even though today there is still a bit of congestion with respect to the banking sector, I think we would all agree that things are panning themselves out. I want to remind us that growing up in Barbados, there were a few common practices in many households. When children did wrong, parents would scold them. When they did worse, they usually got punished. But when they did good or very good, they were embraced and they were rewarded as best as a parent could, or an auntie or an uncle, a grandparent. And sometimes even a trip to town or an unsolicited socone or sugar cake or tamarind ball would convey the pleasure or satisfaction of the parent. This evening, I do not have ice cream or snow cones or tamarind balls to share. But what I have, I giveth thee. I have a few thousand more workers in Barbados ready and eager to return to work. And chief among them are also public officers and employees of state-owned enterprises. Still adhering to the social protocols, I would wish as of tonight for the relevant heads of department and services to put into gear systems for further return to work on the phased basis that we have been using, recognizing that there will still be some limitations as with those who can be physically accommodated within the framework of adequate physical distancing, and of course with the new protocols that we have been settling in the public service to allow for a greater degree of flexible work. The Minister of Health and Wellness, Jeffrey Bostick, summed it up brilliantly yesterday when he pointed out to the country that the crux of the matter was our ability to manage and to respond to the circumstances, or as I had put it before, managing risk. We cannot minimize errors by postponing decisions. There is no logical reason, therefore, to keep workers in Barbados from their workplace any further. We have established stringent protocols, and for the most part, these have been followed and honored, as I said, by the workforce of Barbados. And I have every confidence in my people to walk the line. Accordingly, As of Monday, we shall commence the process of welcoming a number of other state-paid employees back to work. By the same token, with respect to the private sector, several new protocols have been formulated, and the methodology for a safe and functional return to work in most spheres of social and economic activity has been outlined. And I will give you a sense of some of these, but this will be followed up formally as we go forward by the right officers. Therefore, as of June 15th, and subject to the strict adherence to the prescribed health protocols which the government has worked on in conjunction with the private sector and the union movement, all businesses, third sector entities and organizations shall become eligible for permission to open and operate as normal. I've stopped short of giving carte blanche permission because it is vitally important that each entity signs on to and reflects adaptation to the necessary protocols. And I pause there because something like daycare centers are a special case and have required special consideration, as I pointed out to you 2 weeks ago. With all businesses reopening, we recognize that there has to be adequate provision for childcare. And while all schools are not fully open and all daycare centers have been closed thus far, we believe that by permitting them to reopen, it will assist considerably given those who have to go back to work. Because, however, we want a sense of appropriate training and protocols to be adhered to by all, and because of the risk of not so adhering that it is so great, we are asking that those daycare centers reopen from June 22nd as opposed to June 15th to give the officials in the Ministry of Health the appropriate time, not just to share the protocols with them, but to do any fine-tuning and checking and training as is required and will be signed off by the EOC. Similarly, parks and beaches will no longer have the restrictions on hours. Indeed, I would have removed the restrictions on beaches before subject to the curfew, and parks now equally will have none. The big one, PSVs and buses, will operate at full seating capacity as of Monday, and with half of any stipulated standing capacity. The officials have not come to this lightly, but have indicated to the government that the risk of having persons standing in a bus is no greater than the risk with persons who are sitting beside each other, and hence the permission now for standing. The one consideration, specifically and to be dealt with firmly, is that persons must wear masks throughout the entire journey. Except for inclement weather, the windows in those buses must also remain open. Clearly, if it is raining hard, you will have to close the windows. Sporting activity will now be permitted to be conducted as normal, and there will be arrangements put in place for limited spectators, but we will want persons and the sporting associations to work with the government next week so that we can get the audience right by the time we meet 2 weeks from now. But as of next week and the week after, the actual sporting activities can continue without audience. Similarly, when that happens with audience, and even with those who happen to be passing by and stopping, please remember that the strict physical distancing and wearing of masks ought to be observed, and we will certainly seek to enforce it. Social events, meetings, receptions, banquets, parties, we will begin to have normal life again, and these will be permitted. Any of them, however, over 250 persons, we are still going to ask you for now to work with the officials in the Ministry of Health who can turn around things with quick dispatch in order to be able to assist you. In fact, we are creating a special unit under the leadership of the Deputy Chief Environmental Health Officer, Mr. Chapman, in order to ensure that he, along with the members of this unit, will be able to facilitate Barbadians in the request for the larger events. Clearly, this means that smaller events, smaller weddings, smaller dinners, smaller meetings, those can continue so long as the physical distance is maintained and that the masks are being used in particular when you are going to be in close proximity with people. When out socializing, common sense, please. Common sense needs to prevail. And do not, I'm asking you to drop your guard. Wherever practical, recognize that we must continue to avoid handshaking and hugging. And that's hard because somebody like me who likes to hug, believe you me, that's hard. But we have to do it. And I've learned to do the elbow, the foot, and as the namaste. So let us all come together and make sure we get it right. I want to remind people that just as a car has an accelerator and it has a brake, these measures have accelerators and have brakes. So we are opening back up, but we are conscious that it is the management of risk that is going to guide our behavior. And therefore, if people are going to allow us to continue to function as close to normal, then we need everyone to be each other's, first, their own guard, and second, the reminder to their brother or sister that we are not out of danger, but we have to be able to allow people to live, and in so doing, there are strict protocols that we would like each other to share, because we are going to literally not only have to take care of ourselves, but those in our immediate circle. The restriction on size of gatherings in any location, therefore, is really only going to be subject now, under 250, to density. Anything over 250, permission can be given, but we want to go through the precaution initially of ensuring that those people who want to have larger events will work with us to maintain the physical distancing. And we expect that that will take place even as early as Saturday, when I believe that the Attorney General has already given permission for persons to march in Bridgetown. Over the next few days, I expect that the health officials will give greater clarity and greater precision, as well as the drafting of the directive that normally comes will ensure that persons have the certainty to be able to plan out their affairs as required. Some things will, however, remain the same for the time being. For example, the restrictions on visits to hospitals, the restriction on visits to prisons, the restriction on visits to senior citizens' homes. We are asking Barbadians to hold on us with that for now, because we do not want ultimately to affect the most vulnerable. We expect that there will be cause for those of you who are older to want to move about a little more. Once again, I ask you to take precaution and to recognize that even though you are going to go to conduct banking or supermarket or whatever, that we still want you to be safe, because we are not fully out of it. In essence, ladies and gentlemen, I'm authorizing this phased reopening of a lot of our businesses, services, and sports activity in Barbados, consistent with the adherence to the set protocols, especially as they relate to physical distancing and density and other PPE considerations. So yes, gyms will be open, but they must have a capacity to be able to deal with the physical distancing. If your area of economic endeavor has not yet been consulted, or you are in doubt and you are not sure what are the protocols that you have to follow, then I am suggesting to you to please contact the relevant authority with whom you deal, or to please email me at pmbarbados@barbados.gov.bb, so my officers can ensure that we are in a position to put you in contact with the relevant unit that is now being established that will help to keep us safe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, freedom to work and freedom to play will trigger the question of, do we have complete freedom to move around? Again, easing of the curfew restrictions 2 weeks ago was predicated on the respect for the new regulations and the mature response of Barbadians. You acted wisely, and you acted responsibly. But as I said before, not only did I drive around myself and observe with my own 2 eyes, but I also consulted generally with the police, who reported the same. Of course, there were some exceptions to the rule, but I'm not punishing the majority for the indifference and stupidity of a few, and a very, 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 very few, I might add. Accordingly, We are prepared as a government to step a little further out of the crease this evening and to announce first and foremost with the caveat that this too can and will be reversed, remember the brake and the accelerator, if there is rampant abuse. Hence, effective Monday, 15th of June 2020, the existing curfew restrictions from Monday to Thursday of 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. shall be discontinued. The new curfew hours that will remain will simply be from Friday evening, 10 o'clock, to Saturday morning, 5 a.m., and then Saturday night, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Sunday morning, and Sunday night, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. In other words, the weekend. And my friends, believe you me, these will remain in place for the next 2 weeks. But I'm asking persons, let us ensure that we continue to make progress as we have done thus far. So in summary, Monday to Thursday, no curfew. Friday to Sunday, curfew hours are 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And these will be reviewed at the end of the next 2 weeks. Again, I stress the retention of these added freedoms are dependent on our honoring and respecting the additional trust and confidence that we are exposing in you, or reposing in you. The bottom line is the Ministry of Health is a very hard taskmaster, and I am not going to allow us to step so far out of line that their concerns will be overtaken or will be fed by persons who will not want to play ball as we are asking them to do. We have done well in the last 3 months, and I pray that we will continue to do well. Next Monday, we will also be meeting as a government with the wider social partnership to discuss the sensitive issue of border closures, or if it is the will of the majority, border reopening. The reality is that much is happening around us. But we know also well in Barbados that both scenarios are plagued with danger and a measure of risk. In many respects, we die if we don't, and we also die if we do. But leadership is a lonely place, and leadership is about leading. And my friends, I intend, after the widest possible consultations next week, to lead decisively on this matter. For what is at stake is not just lives and livelihoods, but indeed also the Barbadian way that reflects consultation. That is how we have done it from day one. That is how we will do it. But I assure you, as I've said in every meeting, that after consultation, the government reserves the right to decide and to act. I also intend next week to announce a few initiatives that will begin to spruce up Barbados. We started some, and some came to an end, and we've restarted them. If we want to welcome people back here, whether it is family or friend or business associate or visitor, you've heard me say over and over, we have to welcome them to a pristine looking island. We have to return the wow factor to our beaches. We have to also make sure that driving around Barbados will cause people to say, what a beautiful countryside, rather than wondering what all that garbage is doing, thrown all about or being littered by people. We started already, as I said, and we shall continue meeting over the next few days. But today, I came just now straight from Cabinet and go back there tomorrow because we've taken the advice and the recommendations from the Social Partnership and from the Jobs and Investment Advisory Council, and we're pooling these together to begin to get an idea of the priorities for the transformation that is critical for us to be able to come out of this COVID-19 environment, out of this pandemic, stronger and fitter, as I've told you from day one. Next week will be a busy week for Parliament, and in fact, probably the next few weeks, because we have a number of key measures to put in place, including the BOSS program, including amendments to the Severance Payments Act, and other regulations that we need to put in place. I hope, therefore, to be in a position to speak with you, my friends, towards the end of next week again, when we will be able to speak more about what the next few weeks will look like as we go forward. When I began this address, I told you that at the end of it, I would share something very special with you. and it is in this context that I will do so. From the onset of the impact of COVID-19 in Barbados, it was clear that our ability to overcome this scourge would need the commitment, endorsement, and effort of every single Barbadian. It would require us to embrace and support Barbadians wherever they are and however we could. And while government's immediate and urgent response was from a health crisis perspective, we also recognized that we would have to offer inspiration, motivation, and respite for all, whether directly affected by it or not. That mental health is important, and the ability for people to receive that respite is also important. We knew that the weeks of restrictions and adherence, the strict protocols of the distancing and isolation and the no hugging, as I said, would all be traumatic for some, because by nature we are warm and a very socially engaging people. We love to line, we love to interface with each other, we love to go with loved ones and just sit down and talk. We want to come and go generally as we please. COVID-19 forced us to rethink and adapt all of that and to try to embrace a new way of living for much longer than any of us had ever dreamt and certainly wanted. This pandemic has brought out some of the very best of the Bajan personality. And I feel so proud when I see people who spent time in the quarantine centers praising the workers, the nurses, all of the people who helped them. I feel proud when I hear visitors to Barbados who got stranded here talk about how Barbadian families welcome them into their own homes and help take care of them, and that they, in every respect, consider themselves Barbadian. And I get so many letters and emails to this effect that it would really please your heart if I were to share them with you. Strangers, therefore, have helped each other. And we have shared with each other and supported across Barbados the vulnerable souls. We received about 1.7 million, and the right figures will come to the country in the Adopt a Family program, because 471 individuals and companies chose to donate money to help people sleep easier. The government has already paid out to more than 2,490 families the $600 per month, as well as to those who are benefiting from NIS and to those who are benefiting from welfare. Believe you me, we have worked together as a people. Has it been easy? No. Have we adjusted to the guidelines and followed them in the interest of our well-being and that of our nation? You better believe we have. But this is who we are: caring, compassionate, resilient Barbadians. And I knew it from the very beginning when I stood in this very room and started to talk with you. And I'm glad that you also reminded the world that when I shared these things and asked you to behave in this way, that Barbadians rose to the occasion and protected our country, protected our people, and lifted each other up for the most part. Very early, therefore, in this pandemic response, I asked the officials at the National Cultural Foundation to commission a song that would speak to that phrase, "This is who we are." A song that would capture our essence as Bajans, a song that could be shared with anyone, anywhere in the world, and lift up their spirits. A song released at the right time to remind us of our humanity, to remind us that we are resilient, to remind us that together we can overcome and achieve everything and anything. And you would recall that in almost every speech that I've made, I asked you to reflect on the words of our national anthem, recognizing that with God on our side, we should have no doubts nor fears. My friends, we've come a long way. We're not yet where we need to be, but I know that working together and reflecting all that we have reflected in these last 5 to 6 months, that if we do so until such time as there's a therapeutic or a vaccine as a public good widely available to all of us, that this is our new reality. But in accepting our new reality, I am saying to you, this is who we are. It is my pleasure, therefore, to start that process by sharing this song with you this evening and by asking for you to share it to as wide a world as you can, recognizing that this is the essence of Barbados. As the song says, let love go viral, let love overflow, because this is who we are. And believe you me, my friends, we make no excuses for it. Enjoy, be responsible, be safe, and let us look forward to building this country, because we are literally one people with one mission. God bless you.
Shines in our hearts. Hey, it's our world. We must hold on hand in hand
and lift up our fellow man, showing love in every land.
Oh, oh, oh.
This is who we are. We know we can do this together.
Can't hold me down, now make me done so. We have to separate so we can get back together again. And if you're ready, let me go. Alright.
One world, so we have to live together. One blood, looking out for one another. One love, to me sister and me brother. Even if you're rich or poor, white or black, it doesn't matter.
We've been tested before. Out victorious we came.
What we know for sure, we will rise again.
Together, better, stronger.
When the world closed, our hearts opened. When fear ruled, love also deepened. When borders closed, boundaries widened.
With no choice, in one voice.
Let the whole world rejoice, from near and from far.
This is who we are.
Love will always bring us together. Love will always see us through. This is who we are.